Hi, dear Stitchers. It's Judy Whitman with JBW Designs, and I want to welcome you back. I'm so grateful for all of you who take the time to watch my videos. We're up to, I think, almost 1,900 subscribers. So my goal is to get to 2,000 before the end of the year. And so I think I can make it with your help. So if you're enjoying the videos and are interested in subscribing, I would just be so grateful for that. I actually don't really understand the algorithms and how they work, so I'm just trying to grow the channel. I wanted to tell you a little bit first about our Thanksgiving and kind of what has taken place since then. So last Thursday, we had Thanksgiving here, and we had all of the family. We had 14 people. We have to set the dining room table and then another table out into the hallway to get everybody around in one spot. But we had a wonderful time. And then we gathered again. This is one of our traditions on Saturday to go and cut the tree down and come back here and decorate it. This year we have a small tree, so with all those people, that tree was decorated in about 2 seconds, but it looks wonderful. And I put some other decorations up around the house, so it's looking very festive. I love this time of year when the house looks just so cheerful. So what's happened since then is that on Sunday, our daughter started to feel sick, and she went in on Monday to have a COVID test, and she has tested positive, which was quite surprising as she and her husband and son are all vaccinated. So what we're finding out here in Michigan is that that is not necessarily keeping us all safe. So it's quite worrisome. We're trying to be very careful, but we're hearing about more and more breakthrough infections. So she really doesn't feel great at all. Thankfully, she doesn't have to be hospitalized. But she has lost her sense of taste and smell. So that's kind of an update with my family. So we're hoping that the rest of the family is able to stay safe. I have a couple things that I want to talk to you about today. So I kind of have, I always try to write a list of topics that I want to cover because we had such interesting questions from my video from last time. And one of the questions has to do with antique samplers and how do I know that it's authentic when I buy it. So I want to talk about that a little bit. And then another question, actually one of the viewers sent me an article, which I'll address too, about the letters used as an S in one of my antique samplers, but it looks like an F. So she sent me a very interesting article, and I want to tell you about that. I have actually some designs that I have stitched that are not my own. Usually at Christmas time, I try to take a little time out and stitch other designers' work. So I want to show you some of those. Some are finished and some are waiting to be finished, but I thought you might get a kick out of seeing them. I also have Christmas designs from my collection that I want to share with you. I'll have giveaways at the end of the video. So get comfortable, get a little cup of tea or cup of coffee in your stitching, and we'll just chat away. The funny thing is, the very first video I did a year ago, I haven't gone back to watch it because I'd probably cringe, but I looked at how long it was. It was 8 minutes and 34 seconds, which kind of gives me a chuckle because surely I could have talked longer than that, but that's okay. I'm coming up with more and more topics because of you, because you give me such great input. So thank you. So the first question I want to talk about is how do I know if a sampler is authentic? And I want to preface this with the fact that I am not a sampler expert at all, and I don't want to claim to be, because there are several YouTube people and Instagram people, and I'm going to name 2 of them, who truly are what I consider experts in that field. And one is Jacob from Modern Folk Embroidery, and his videos are fascinating if you haven't watched them before. He's very, very knowledgeable, and some of the information I have to share today will be as a result of a question that, or answer that one of my viewers gave me, Beverly. And then the second person I want to mention is Vicki Jeannette with Needlework Press. And she and her daughter-in-law, Megan, are in Arizona. If you haven't checked out her Instagram account, I would definitely do that. She posts daily. She has the most amazing collection, not only of antique samplers, but of other kinds of pieces. And her pictures are just gorgeous. So that's always a fun one to follow too if you don't know about them. So most of my samplers that I own have actually been purchased in person. So I've either been at an antique show or I've been at a needlework show where someone had samplers for sale, and I was able to look at them up close to determine that indeed they were not reproductions of other samplers. So I want to, let's see, I have several to show you, but one of the first things that I would suggest to you is that you work through a reputable dealer. And that is hard to know when you're buying on Etsy or eBay. You really don't know that if you can't see it in person. Because when I buy, like this one, actually I bought from I'm going to show this again later. There'll probably be a glare on this. But this is a sampler that I bought from someone here in Kalamazoo who is an antique dealer. It's actually 1794. And of course you could tell immediately from looking at it, by looking at not only the linen, the fact that it looked very aged, just everything about it showed you that it was an antique and not a reproduction, especially the linen and the fibers that were used, and also the condition of the piece, because often the older pieces will have condition issues. So let's see. The other thing is, if you are buying online, I would suggest that you really study the close-ups of the piece. And usually when a dealer posts something, for instance on Etsy, they'll give you 4 or 5 pictures that are up close of the piece that you're looking at. And so you can again judge the linen, the condition of the linen, the fibers, the edges. Often the edges are kind of rough. This is one piece. I'm going to show it to you again later because it's going to illustrate another topic here that I bought online. And it's so interesting because, I'm sorry about the glare here, you could tell from the close-ups that the linen was a very, actually it's not a linen, it's almost like a Penelope canvas, and you could tell from the edges also. Often the edges are either unfinished or hemmed. So those are just a few hints. Also the price. Antique samplers are not cheap. I don't pay a lot for the ones that I buy. I know there are dealers that sell them for thousands of dollars, and I'm not at that level. So, you know, if it's $50 to $60, $70, I would say it's probably not authentic because usually they run a lot more than that. So I know actually of professionals. Jacob talked one time about one of the samplers that he bought, and he realized after he got it that it was not authentic. So it happens, I'm sure, to all of those who are really experts in antiques. So I want to move on to another very interesting topic that came up in the last video. And I'm sorry I don't have the antiques to show you. I took them both into the framer this week. And I'm so excited because he's going to have them done in 2 weeks. But it was, and all I can show you, I'm sorry, this is not great, but this was from the Olive Roley sampler. And I discussed this last week because she used, as I said, an F in place of an S. And the interesting thing was she used it at the end of the word this. She used it at the beginning of see, S-E-E. She used it at the end of miles. She used it in the center of distant. But then in her design, she did use a regular S at the a capital S at the beginning of the word seventh. So my friend who wrote to me, Beverly, said, why don't you check out Jacob's video number 11, episode number 11. And that was such an interesting episode because he talked about missing letters in alphabets and why that occurs. And then he addressed what he called the long, let's see what, he had a long S and a round S. And I will admit, after listening to the whole description, I still am a little befuddled by that. So Beverly, you'll have to be patient with me because I still need to do more research and more reading on what exactly that means and if Olive's lettering falls into that category. So I want to talk to you a little bit about one of the topics that he addressed, and I thought it was so interesting. He talked about the fact, and we've all seen this, that there are often letters missing in alphabets in antique samplers. And he said there are usually 5 of them. And they are, let me look at my notes, J, often X, Y, Z, and U. And he said that it's often dependent on the country the girl is from and the language she speaks, and probably also the era that it was stitched. One thing that often happened is that the I and J were considered interchangeable. Sometimes those letters were not even used in the language that was spoken, which is so interesting. So, and often the U and the W can be interchanged. So I pulled out a couple of my antique samplers, and I'm going to just show you what letters were missing and if I know the date of when it was worked. So I have quite a collection here. So I have 4 I'm going to show you. So this one, which I mentioned before, actually was stitched in 1796. And it is missing the letter J and XYZ. I believe this is an American sampler. It was stitched by Mary Wilson. And I have not done research on this one. Actually, I reproduced it years ago and it did not sell that well. That was probably before samplers became so popular. So maybe I'll re-release it again. We'll see if there's interest in it. So that was an interesting one to study. And then these are very large, so you'll have to be patient as I pick them up and try to hold them for you to see. Let's see if I can balance this one. Let's see if I can balance it here. So this particular sampler is French, and that was the one that I showed you before that I had bought online. I loved the alphabet. This has been reproduced as an antique sampler. This one is missing the I and also the W. And I don't have a date on this one. I'm guessing again that this was probably late 18th century. So that was another alphabet that we could study with missing letters. All right, I need very long arms to reach this. I have many things on the table here. Excuse me for I tried to get everything set up ahead of time. So this is a sampler, I believe it was German, by Berta Heinen. This has been reproduced in my sampler collection book. And this particular sampler is missing the J. So she has H, I, and then no J in either of her alphabets. And nor the one down here. So there are 3 in this alphabet. Jacob also mentioned that sometimes even in Dutch alphabets, they're still not using the J today. So I thought that was kind of an interesting fact. So I have one more sampler to show you. with the missing letters. And this is one that I haven't shared with you yet, but it's going to be in the next red sampler collection. And I absolutely love this piece. I need an easel or something, don't I, with these giant pieces. So this is Italian. Let's see if I can balance it right here. And it is beautiful. It's almost, I think of it as a toweling, but all of the edges have been hand stitched. I love this piece. I have not done research on it yet as far as the stitcher. It actually tells me that it was stitched in 1894. It was stitched in Chioggia, and I'm sure that pronunciation is not correct. I'll have to ask my friend Rami, who is Italian, to translate that for me. But I did find out that this was stitched in a little town that's right outside of Venice. And the stitcher was Ida Padoan. And Padoan is a very common Italian name. And that's all I've learned so far. It also said Claus Terza, which means, I'm going to move this for 1 second because I'm knocking things off my table, which means 5th class. So we don't know if she was just 5 years old. I would doubt it. The stitching is just wonderful. It's just beautiful. So in this particular alphabet, this was very interesting. It is missing the J, the K, W, X, and Y. And that's true. She did a small alphabet up here. She did a beautiful script alphabet here and a 3rd alphabet right there. So I'm going to show you this piece because it's just a beautiful piece. It has been charted, and as I say, it will be in the next red sampler booklet. So let's move this over here and get back on track again. So what else do I have to talk to you about? Oh, I know. So we have talked many times, and where did I put it, about the Monica Marshall sampler. And I've told you each week a little bit more about what I learned about it. And I actually wrote to the owners, the current owners of the Manor, to Georgie Manor. Let me show you Monica's sampler once again, real quickly. You've seen it before, but this is the name of the little town that she lived in Cornwall. And we know from our research and the help from our viewers that she did it when she was 14. So I wrote to the owners of the manor, which has been redone and turned into cottages, and I received the most lovely handwritten letter back. You can see to Georgie Manor listed at the top. And she wrote just a wonderful note, and she sent a couple of little brochures. However, I didn't learn a lot. So I'm going to keep trying. She wrote to me, and I've actually transcribed her letter. She has beautiful handwriting, but it was very difficult to read. Dear Judy, many thanks for your interesting letter and photos. I cannot make out when the stitching is, but will pass on your letter to the family who we brought the property from, as they can be relatives to the Marshalls, which is the name of the girl that stitched the sampler. We've lived here for 4 years now, so we really don't know too much, which is really a shame because the history of the manor is so fascinating. So I am going to email her back and thank her, of course, for responding, which was very, very sweet. She sent it in this beautiful note paper, and see if indeed she has passed it on. And this is one of the things she sent to me, which is a picture of the manor as it looked, in the 1800s, which was quite incredible. It did burn down, so it's since been rebuilt. And then, all right, this is going to be on our bucket list. This shows a brochure of the manor and the cottages as they are today. And so you can see they've converted a lot of the buildings into little vacation spots. So it was a thrill to receive her letter. It was so nice of her to respond. So that's all I know about Monica. And my next topic has to do with what have I stitched by other designers. So let me clear my desk here. And I have several things, as I mentioned, that are finished and not finished. I have looked everywhere for the patterns that go with the 3 of these designs so I could give you the source. And I'm sorry to say I don't have a source. So maybe one of you will recognize the design. This is a Prairie Schooler. I stitched a couple years ago. I love this little Santa. So this has to be on my list of things to do, is to finish 2 of them. Actually, I have 2 Prairie Schoolers. I do know that. I just don't know what year they came from. This was fairly recent, I believe. I think that was in the last few years. So those are both adorable. I looked back at my collection. I have quite a few of the Prairie Sampler cards, but not the complete collection. And then this one I just love. This is a Brenda Gervais. Again, I cannot find my original book, but I love this piece, and I am going to finish this, hopefully this Christmas season, into a pillow. So I'll have to look and find out which booklet that comes from. I know it's in one of her collections. So here are 3 other designs that I've stitched over the years that I pulled out when I was pulling out my Christmas decorations. And I love this piece. It looks like old printed toweling. It's actually all stitched. This, I believe, is an Artful Offerings design. I don't know if you're familiar with her designs, but they're just charming. And I've got, I think just one of hers. I just ordered another one. So that's one of the pieces that I stitched years ago. This was from a French designer, and as I say, don't know the source of this one. And so that was another design that I stitched years and years ago. That's probably on a 32 count linen. These are all probably on 32. And this is one of my favorites. And this was in the Primitive and Punch Needle magazine a few years ago. And I believe this might be an Artful Offerings also. This fabric was just one that I had in my stash. It's almost, as I say, like a linen toweling. It had the red stripes on it. But I just love how it turned out. So those are the things that I've done of other designers, which is fun to do just for a change of pace. So now I want to move on to some of the designs in my collection. And as you know, I have many, many. And this week I thought I'd concentrate on just a theme, which is the Sing-a-Song Stockings. I'm going to show you some of those. I'm also going to show you 2 other designs, and then we'll get into some giveaways and prizes, etc., that I have waiting for you. So this is, did I pull? I did, okay. So this one is called, I have 2 models of this, and I finished these. This is called Peace on Earth. And it is made up of all kinds of motifs, as I often do. This was finished as an easel. And I mounted this on, as I mentioned before, I use comic board, and I put batting underneath it. Comic board is wonderful for mounting because it's not as heavy as a cardstock. You can actually cut it with scissors. And then I covered a board with fabric, of course, a little larger than the piece. Covered the the backing, and of course the inside has to be covered too. This is actually 2 layers of comic board that have been hand sewn together. You could glue them, but I like the hand sewn because it keeps it nice and tight. And then when I do the rickrack, instead of trying to go around the corners, I cut a piece for each side, because then it looks nice and neat. And then I just added a little bow and a tiny charm at the top. So that's Peace on Earth, and this is what the booklet looks like. Shows you the easel on the front. And let's see if I show you yep. On the inside of the booklet, it shows you the next model that I wanted to share with you, which is the design stitched over 2. So this one I worked on let's get this straight here. I worked on a 28 count red linen and just used one strand of white. And again, I used the comic board for the finishing. And you cut the template for the triangle. You mount your red linen on that. And then I have the backing fabric. And then I added a bow at the top and a little bit of greenery and a bow and a bell at the base of that. Oh, and cording around the edge. And it might look complicated for the finishing, but if you just take it one step at a time. And if you're interested in more finishing directions, perhaps if not my next video in January, I can come back and address finishing again for you. So that's one design I wanted to share with you. Another one, which someone just posted on my Friends of JBW Facebook page, she had done this Santa. I don't know if she stitched him over one or two. You'll have to check out the page. But she stitched the Santa, and she had found a red sled at Kohl's one time. It looked like about 12 inches high. And so her design was probably over two. And she mounted the Santa on the red sled with a little greenery at the top. It looked just adorable. This is actually a horn book that was made by Kelmscott. I do not believe it's available any longer, but there is a company called Stitches, etc. You'll have to go online to look at them, or I will post them in my notes below. And I know that they do all kinds of horn books too, so you might be able to find something that's the right size if that's a finish that's interesting to you. And of course, when you do the horn book, it's so easy because you're just going to mount your design and add a little cording around the edges. And you can make that into a little tassel at the base. So that design looks like this in the book form. It's French Country Santa. And instead of using the French words, you could always put a name below that or a year. And when I did it I should have pulled this model out and forgot about it. I also worked it over two and finished it as a little bag. And I like how that one turned out also. So those two designs have been in my collection for a while, but it's always fun to see the models again. And so now I want to tell you about the Sing-a-Song series. So let's see, I just made a pile of them and I thought I'd show you. I hope I don't bore you with them, but a number of the Sing-a-Song stockings. There are 15 in the collection, and each one what's the word I'm looking for? Features, that's the word I'm looking for, either a hymn or a Christmas song. So this was one of the earliest one. It was Here Comes Santa Claus. These are quite small, actually. They're only about 4. This is for mounting purposes, incidentally, at shows. They're only about 4 inches tall. Most of them are finished with either cording or a little chenille along the edges. Again, you would make a template of the design before you mounted it. And if that sounds confusing, as I say, I will address that again. And the booklet for that one looks like this. So that's the Sing-a-Song 2, Here Comes Santa Claus. And these are really fun to design. I usually do 2 or 3 every year. And I think I maybe did 2 this year. I've actually kind of forgotten. So let me make a pile here of my things. This was actually the very first one I did, which was Over the River and Through the Woods, which was fun to do. And the booklet looks like this. And it too was finished with a chenille edging. It has little sheep here that are worked in French knots. If you are not a fan of French knots or colonial knots, which are similar to that, you can always put a bead in place of a French knot and still get that look of a little sheep. These are worked on a 32, I believe, yes, 32 Belfast linen. This was latte, and they're worked over 2. So they're not over 1, so they're very doable. You could do it on Ada. There's no back stitching with most of them. All right, another one that I did was Away in a Manger. And often I use charms with the design. So on this one, you'll see a little angel up at the top. And I use beads in the background. And there's also a tiny little gold star up there. So if you order the booklets from your shops, the shops usually order the charms to go with the booklet. And Away in a Manger as a booklet, let's see if I can hold it up, looks like this. And again, that was stitched on the latte linen. Not all of them were, but I'll talk to you about that. All right, this one is another hymn, and it's, let's see if I can hold this up. It's We Three Kings. And you can see the finishing on the back. My professional finisher did this one, and she did the beautiful ruched ribbing around the edges. And the booklet for We Three Kings looks like this. So another one in that series is Frosty the Snowman. So I used just a few words from the verse. This one doesn't have a charm. It too is worked on latte over 2, and the booklet looks like this. All right, let's see. I also did Oh Christmas Tree. So here's Oh Christmas Tree. I did use little pearl beads in the background to look like snow. And the booklet looks like this. So I only have 4 or 5 more to go. Hopefully you're stitching away happy as can be. Here is Hark the Herald Angels Sing. More little sheep with French knots at the bottom. And there are 2 little brass stars in that one. And the booklet for Hark the Herald looks like this. I've been posting these on Instagram too because I love for people to see them. So another one that was done, let's see, this wasn't that long ago. Let's look at it was done just a few years ago. I did Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, a classic song of course. And there are a few beads used in this one in the background and also for the tops of the trees. You stitch up pretty quickly. Probably not for this Christmas, but maybe for another year. And the booklet for that looks like this. All right, and I did Oh Little Town of Bethlehem. More sheep, more stars. Not hard to do at all. And the booklet looks like this. As I say, these are such fun to design, and many times people have been sending me lists of things. Oh, have you thought about this song or this hymn? So I'm always glad to get a suggestion for one that maybe I have missed. I have to, you know how you say you don't have favorites, but this actually is one of my favorites. I love the song Little Drummer Boy, and so this was fun. It took me a while to get the little drummer boy looking to me just right, but I'm happy with how he turned out. That's such a beautiful hymn. Here's the backing on that one, the little chenille, and usually a bow and a tie up in the corner. And the booklet for this one, the drummer boy looks like this. And then the last one is I Saw Three Ships a-Sailing. And that too looks like this. And it's finished with the chenille, which is really an easy trim to do because you could glue it around the edges. So that's not the whole sing-a-song collection, but most of it. And I thought you'd get a kick out of seeing it because they're so easy and quick to stitch. So what do I have to talk about for the rest of the video? couple things. I have some giveaways to announce from last week, and I also, let's see, before I do that, I want to look at my list. So in video 28, which was the last one, I have just one person who I have not heard from yet who was supposed to win the 4 village booklets. And her name in the comment section was Algo Max Stitcher, and her first name is Marcia. So Marcia, if you will write to me, I'd be happy to send you those 4 books that I showed last week. So those are still in waiting. I also have, I'm trying to think I have, maybe that's it. So if I don't hear from some of my viewers when I did a giveaway weeks ago, after a couple weeks, I'll put the booklets back into circulation again and give them away. So this week I chose 3 winners, and so I am going to give away, and I'll announce the names. Linda Whitley is going to get the piece design. Loretta Henderson is going to get the French Country Santa. And then my third person is going to get a stocking of their choice. So they can choose from any of the 15 stockings that are available. And her comment name is Stitching Runner. So please write to me. I will go back to the last video and send you a little note to tell you that you're on the prize list. And I have something else to give away. And I haven't decided yet how I'm going to do this. I'll give them away next week also, but I'll need to hear a comment about whether this is something you can actually use. So Alphabet in the Round was a new design, I think in September. And this model was stitched over 1. And if you go to my friend's page, one of the girls worked all the letters in the same color except for her last initial. I think I talked about this before. And it is mounted on a little wooden wreath that comes from Hobby Lobby. And so the other day I was in the store looking around for new inspiration, and I found the package. I was trying to find the packaging. Here it is. Okay, so it comes in a package of 3, and they're called Joy to the World ornaments. And they're in their wooden ornament section, which sometimes is an aisle down the middle, although now that they're moving everything around, we don't know. So this is what they look like when you buy the package. There are 3 in a package. So my finisher just spray painted this wreath and mounted, and any round design would work, any round ornament, and mounted it in the center and covered the lettering. And then on the back, she just put a piece of felt. Or no, I think she actually did a little, covered a circle with fabric, but felt would work just as well. So I have 3 of these to give away. So just let me know if that's something you're interested in, and I will check the comments, and then I will give those away next week along with the other prizes. So I want to give credit to several Flosstube people who have been so good to me. Let me do another reaching here. All right. So one of the Flosstubers is Annie with the Proper Stitcher, who I mentioned before. She's been so good about supporting my channel, showing my booklets, and so I really thank Annie for all of her support. I also, Artie with the Vintage Stitcher has been just a wonderful support also. And yesterday, what do I get in the mail but this beautiful gift from her? So she sent a card and a lovely note, and then she sent, I haven't hung this on the tree yet, but that's where it's going. She sent this darling little ornament that if you open it, you can put it like that on the tree. So I'm going to add that to our tree. And then, this is the amazing part, she took one of my designs, which was a mitten, the alphabet mitten, and she stitched it and mounted it in a wooden tray. And she's very good about finding things at the dollar store that she can use for her finishing. You'll have to watch her videos because she's very, very clever about that. And then she just added a beautiful bow in greenery. And I was just so delighted when I opened that box. So I need to write to Artie and thank her for her beautiful gift. The other Flosstuber I want to mention is the, let's see, I wrote it down here, Yankee cross stitcher. Remember I told you last week about the antique rooster sampler, and one of the Flosstube people had just done the most beautiful finish. And I couldn't remember the name of the source. So Yankee cross stitcher, you'll have to go back and see if you're interested and see that finishing that she did. So thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for your time and for watching. And I want to leave you with an inspirational thought for the next couple weeks. And that is, I'm wishing you a month filled with peace, love, and joy. And I know that sometimes that's hard in our lives because everyone has some kind of heartache that they're dealing with. So I want to let you know how much I care about you. And I'm so grateful to have you in my life. I hope to film in 2 weeks. That would probably be my last one before Christmas. So write, ask questions. I love answering all of your and hearing your input and answering questions. So thanks a lot, and I will see you hopefully in 2 weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.